to the very first episode of Monday Meetings with Marie. This is a short series that I created where we talk all about branding so that you as an entrepreneur can better understand and digest the overall topic that is branding so that you know how to brand your business better. I am Marie, brand strategist and designer, and today's topic is going to be what branding really is and the difference between a business and a brand. Okay, so what is branding really? I'll tell you what it isn't. It isn't your logo, it isn't your color palette, it isn't your website design. It isn't any of those things that we would typically think that branding is. Now, while all of those things are included and can help make up your brand, that's not what branding is completely. Branding is a way that an audience interacts with, connects, and perceives a brand. Branding at the core is based off of business to consumer relationship, and branding is what makes the difference between a business and a brand. Okay, so let's go in and break down what branding is. There are two parts to branding. We have your foundational branding and your visual branding. So focusing more so on your foundational branding, this is made up of your brand strategy. So your brand strategy is really the foundation and the guide, the blueprint for a consistent brand. Your brand strategy allows for you to have clarity and intention in your brand, and this, I like to say, accounts for around 75% of your actual branding, and we'll get into why it's such a big portion in a minute. So let's go back to part 2 of what branding is. That is your visual branding. So this is the stuff that we see, and this is the stuff that we like to associate with branding. So this includes your logo, your color palette, your website design, your brand photography, your packaging design, all of those type of visual aesthetics, right? This is what is used to give a face to your brand strategy and your foundational branding. And this is the remaining 25% of branding. So let's go back to your foundational branding. There are 5 different steps. Your internal brand, then we have your target audience, next we have your market landscape and positioning, then we have your brand personality, and lastly we have your brand identity. So I am going to kind of quickly run through those, but this video isn't focused on brand strategy. So your internal brand includes your brand's values, your purpose, your goals, certain things like that that'll be the guiding factor for your brand strategy. And then we go into your target audience. This portion of your brand strategy includes your target audience, who they are, what their problems are, what their goals are, how you can help them as a brand. And then we move on to your market landscape and positioning. So this is really the overview of your industry, seeing who the major competitors are, what they're offering, and how they serve the audience. And this is also an understanding of how you can position your brand to fill any gaps that are left in the industry for your audience. Next, we go on to your brand personality, and this includes your brand beliefs, your messaging, your voice, your tone, and this is really what your audience is going to feel from your brand immediately. And then lastly, in your brand strategy, we have your brand identity, and this is your name, your slogan, and your brand story. So like I said before, this video isn't about brand strategy, but it is important that you have that little bit of understanding before we move on. So remember how I said your foundational branding and your brand strategy makes up 75%? Well, it does that because this is what's going to build and strengthen your brand at the core. It is the entire core of your brand. If you don't have this, if you don't have foundational branding, if you don't have a brand strategy, you do not have a brand, okay? You just have a logo, some pretty colors, some pretty photography, and a website design, but you don't have any intention or any meaning behind it. And this is important because it's going to be trust amongst your audience. And that trust comes from your internal brand, your values, your purposes, as well as your beliefs, your messaging, things such as that nature, because it makes you more than just a business trying to get people's money, right? It gives you a purpose, and it makes you and your brand more relatable, more humanized. Is that the word, humanized? It humanizes your brand, yeah. Your brand strategy basically sets the tone to give your audience something to connect with. Okay, so let's use this really quick analogy. Say you find someone's ID, and you know what? You can tell everything about that person's identity. You can tell them their name, you can tell them how old they are, you can tell them their birthday, you can tell them their eye color, their weight, their state that they live in, but you don't trust that person because you don't know that person. That person has done nothing that is going to allow for you to trust them, right? You trust people based off of, how well you know them internally and their intentions, their personality. And trusting an individual goes a lot deeper than, oh, that's your name, this is how tall you are, this is your age. It goes deeper than that, and it's the same thing with your brand. So if you have a logo and if you have a website, but you have no intentions, no personality, no messaging, no internal anything, you're kind of like a shell, like with no substance, no purpose, no anything. Okay, so now let's shift gears and go back to your visual branding. So visual branding also includes 5 different elements. Element 1 is your brand identity design. So this is the stuff that a lot of people like to think of first whenever they think of branding. And this includes your logo, your color palette, any brand patterns, and things such as that nature. Also included in your visual branding is your print collateral. So print collateral is pretty much the real life experience that your customer or your client is going to get from you. And this can be anything from product labels to packaging design to business cards to brochures to anything physical. Okay, so next we have your brand photography, and this is another one of those things that a lot of people, kind of sort of run out to do when they think about branding their business. So your brand photography is here to serve as a way to humanize your brand a little bit more and allow for your customers and for your clients to envision themselves and imagine themselves receiving whatever item it is that you sell or getting that service done that you offer. And then next we have your website design, and this is the home base of your brand. This is where your audience should be able to come to get to know about the brand, to find the products that you sell or the services that you offer. And lastly, we have your digital collateral. So digital collateral is basically your brand's digital existence outside of your website. So this would be social media designs, campaigns, e-flyers, any email designs, any sort of branded content that exists digitally outside of your site. Now, remember how I said that branding is the difference between a brand and a business? Well, let's compare and contrast the two. So a business is simply a registered entity that provides a service or that sells a product, whereas a brand goes a little bit further than that. A business's main goal is pretty much just to make money, while a brand's goal is to make a connection and to provide more than just the product or that service, but to build a community as well as making a profit. So a quick example of a business versus a brand. Let's say we don't have any socks and we need some socks, right? And we're just a regular person, we just want some socks. And there is a pack of generic socks at Dollar General, 8 in a pack for $10, right? But Nike also sells socks, but their socks are 2 in a pack for $18. Now, somebody who doesn't care and just is wanting some socks, they're very obviously going to go to Dollar General and get their generic socks, right? Because that's all they're looking for. They're just looking for some socks. Whereas somebody who is within Nike's targeted audience, example, a young athlete, they would probably more than likely prefer the socks from Nike versus the socks from Dollar General. The socks from Nike would, be a little bit more important to them than the socks from Dollar General. And this is because Nike is a brand, Nike is not a business. And you can tell this because Nike has their foundational and their visual branding down pat. So Nike's foundational branding, they clearly have an internal brand. They clearly have values and their purposes. So Nike is really known to value community, to value progression, to value innovation. And Nike's purpose and their messaging is very clear, very apparent to promote, motivate, and inspire their target audience, aka young athletes, to go out and to do more, to be better, to improve, to try harder, to try again. So an example of how they display and communicate their values and their messaging is literally everywhere that Nike is. One example are Nike's blog posts. So on Nike's site, they do have a section, like if you scroll all the way down to the bottom, and I scrolled all the way down to the bottom one time because I was bored and I wanted to see if Nike had blog posts, but they do, and it's called Nike's Journal, and they have lots of blog posts from coaching to help athletes perform better. They have a community section that is really more so inspiring and motivational. Then they have an athlete section which focuses mainly on individual athletes themselves. So again, more inspiration and more motivation. And then another section that they have is their culture section. And this section is very important because they take their target audience and they really connect with them individually by recognizing them as more than just dollar signs, as more than just people who are going to buy their products, but as actual human beings. And they relate to them on a level that isn't just exclusively sports related, if you get what I'm saying. So, but anyways, like I said before, it's stuff like that that really makes you love Nike because they have a foundation. They have their foundational branding put together. What do them Dollar General brand socks have? They just socks. They're just socks, right? And you as an entrepreneur, you don't want to just be selling some socks, okay? Don't be Dollar General's socks, be Nike, okay? Have a brand foundation. And if we're just going to just flat out compare, the two, a business versus a brand, the difference is visibility, reputation, perceived value, community. It's just so much stronger than just selling items or selling a service. So a very quick recap, branding is the way that an audience interacts with, connects, and perceives a brand. It's also the difference between a business and a brand. Branding is also broken up into two parts, your foundational branding and your visual branding. And altogether that includes your brand strategy, your brand identity design, your print collateral, your brand photography, your digital collateral, and your website design. We will be covering everything that I listed, your strategy, your identity design, and so on and so forth over the next couple of weeks. Anyways, I hope that you learned something from this and can take something from this, and at the end of it, you understand that branding is not just your logo or your color palette or your website, but it's a lot deeper than that. But that is it for now. I will see you in next week's episode. But until then, y'all be good. Y'all be easy. I'm gonna be good. I'm gonna be easy. So, see y'all later.